I'm joined here today by the one and only Vicente Luque, who's set to fight Mike Perry in what I know is going to be a barn burner coming up at UFC Uruguay. Vicente, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Doing great.
Glad to hear it. We know you're close to the fight right now. Where are you at for this training camp?
So I'm in Brazil for this training here in Cerrado MMA. I'm always back and forth between Brazil and Florida, and my last camp was in Florida, so I decided for this camp to do it in Brazil. I like always to get new visions and new trainings, not get used to the same thing always. So I chose Brazil for this one.
And did that factor in at all, the fact that this was taking place in Uruguay, which is sort of the same continent, not too far away, or is it just, time to mix things up?
No, I think that definitely helps because I'm about 3 hours and a half away from Uruguay, so it's not going to be a long trip. It's going to be no problem for weight cut and adjusting to the time. So I think that definitely helps.
And I assume when you do your training camp in Florida, when you do your training camp in Brazil, you sort of have different sort of strengths and weaknesses for each camp. What sort of strengths do you have from training in Brazil?
Both camps, they're really similar because my coaches are always talking to each other. So I have Henry and Daniel. They're the two, head coaches, and they're always talking to each other. But when I'm in Brazil, I focus more on, it's really the same. I think maybe here a little bit more of the ground game, jiu-jitsu and luta libre. And when I'm in the US, I get the wrestling. But I always focus on everything and, to get to fight night and be able to do whatever I want to do.
And I assume in this training camp, since you're fighting a guy like Mike Perry, we know he likes stand on the feet, he's got heavy hands. I assume there must be a lot of work on the stand-up, or is there also this element of wrestling that sort of you can rely on?
Definitely, I work my stand-up. That has always been my strength. I started as a striker, so for this fight, it's no different. I'm planning to go out there and strike with him. He's a guy that has a brawler style. I'm more of a technician, and I'm gonna try to get those openings and try to connect my shots. But always, I see it as an MMA fight. I have a strong ground game. I believe a little bit stronger than Perry. So that's also, if I see the opportunity in the fight to take the fight down and use my floor, it can also happen.
And when this fight was announced, Twitter went a little bit crazy. Everybody's imagining just this the possibilities of this matchup. What was your reaction? I assume either your manager or the UFC, they came to you and they offered up Mike Perry as your next opponent.
Everything started when Perry said something that he wanted to fight with somebody in the welterweight division. I went there and suggested that we could be main event for Uruguay. And after that, negotiation started. Ali started talking to the UFC. The UFC was interested on the fight, and eventually Mike Perry also got interested in the fight, and it was matched up. But outside of the top 15, I think he is the name I want to face. He has, a lot of guys. He has a lot of recognition. He has beaten some big names like, the last fight he fought against Cowboy, the Brazilian Cowboy. He used to be a top 15. He has beaten Jake Ellenberger. So I think it was the perfect name out of the top 15 for me to face at this moment.
And how do you think you match up with Mike Perry? I know you mentioned you're more of a technician, he's more of a brawler. Is this a matchup that entirely favors you, or does he sort of have some strengths in this one as well?
I think his biggest strength, is his brawling style, is the style to make the fight dirty, come in and push the pace and try to get the knockout. But at the same time, that's something that I can utilize on my favor. So every single fight, I look at it as I'm fighting a champion. So I'm not at all underestimating Mike Perry. I know he's dangerous and he can bring it. He can, knock me out as much as I can knock him out. But my plan is to go in there technical, try to piece him up in the stand-up and get the knockout.
And so you are a guy with a lot of power. You mentioned sort of his brawler style. Is one of the things you guys have in mind is sort of waiting for him to get sloppy and trying to capitalize, or is that not really something that's factoring in for you?
I think it's more of a natural thing. So whenever he tries to come with his shots, I'm going to be ready to counter them or, get into the striking zone and put my shots. But I really don't plan like, oh, I'm just going to counter, I'm just going to attack. I'm going to feel the fight, how it comes. He's a guy that comes forward. I'm also a guy that comes forward. So I think the beginning is going to be both of us really trying to pressure each other. And from there on, I'm going to see what I'm going to do.
And when you fight a guy like Mike Perry, we know he has a lot of power. You do as well, and that's usually something that you've used in your fights. But when you fight a guy like Mike Perry and you know he can knock out anyone, what sort of goes through your mind with this fight? Do you have to be extra careful, extra cautious, or is that something you try not to think about too much?
You know, I every single fight, I don't want to be knocked out. I'm not trying, to get.
Yeah.
If it happens, but I'm gonna first try to have my guard up. I'm gonna try to move my head and not get punched. But if it does happen, it's part of it. But I don't focus so much on that. I focus on putting my game, putting my pressure on him. Because the same way he can knock me out, I can go in there and connect my shot, and I know that if it lands, it's gonna drop him.
And every fight I've talked to you so far, whether it was Chile, Rochester, stuff like that, you've always mentioned how much family you have coming out. I know you have family all over the world. This time happening in Uruguay, do you have family that's coming out for this fight as well?
I actually have family and friends that will be going from here from Brasilia, and my mom's gonna be going. My wife is going. Some of the coaches, some training partners are gonna go there, so it's gonna be good. And I think I'm gonna have the support not only from my friends and family, but also from the Uruguayan crowd.
And do you like having your family watching you when you're fighting, or does that add an extra bit of pressure because you don't want something to happen or for them to see you get hurt? What is that like mentally for you?
That for me has always been, extra motivation because my mom and my wife always go to my sparring sessions, so I'm used to that. It's not something that bothers me. And whenever they are going to the fight, my dad goes to most of my fights as well, and it's always motivating. I like to have lunch with them the day of the fight, and get all that energy, positive energy. They always have been supportive, so for me, it's more motivation. I feel no pressure.
I know you mentioned having lunch with them on the same day and stuff. Are they something that kind of helps you not focus on the fight 24/7, or does that actually help you having your family in order to focus on the fight?
It actually helps me focus on the fight. I'm the kind of guy, I love thinking about the fight. I love going through it on my mind, knowing my opponent, knowing what he's gonna do, imagining different situations, scenarios in the fight that I could, encounter on the fight. So I'm not the kind of guy that tries to get my head off of that. I like to be focused on the fight, and having my family there, I think, helps on that, and especially helps for it to be, it's just one more day. I'm going there, do what I love, have fun, and the people that I love are around me, so it's always positive energy.
And I think as of today, we're recording this on Saturday. You're about a week away from the fight. What does your schedule kind of look like? When do you fly out to Uruguay? When does the weight cut start? What does your schedule look like for you?
Yeah, so my weight cut starts like 4 weeks previous to the fight, so I've been cutting down slowly. I'm gonna be there at around 185. That's what I normally land for my fights. I'm flying out on Tuesday, so I fly and get there in the same day, so it's gonna be a quick flight. And after that, it's a good wake up. I'm not the kind of guy, that walks around too heavy. I have a good wake up for 170, so it's easy. Just keep technical work, keep my shape, and fight night is there and have fun.
And what's your strategy for weight cutting? Are you one of those guys? Are you water loading? Are you just dehydrating yourself? What's the process like for you right now?
Yeah, so I water load till Thursday, and Thursday I cut the water and start my dehydration. And I don't dehydrate that much, but I like to do it on Thursday, a little bit at night, and if I have something left in the morning, I'll go to sauna or bathtub.
And one thing I've always been curious about with fighters is something people call the weight cut sleep. How do you sleep when you're in the middle of your weight cut? I assume it must be pretty rough to stay asleep and not just constantly dream about drinking water.
In the past, I used to suffer a lot because I would be maybe like 3 days without water and no salt, and that was really bad, not only for my body, but I couldn't sleep well, and I was really stressed out. But now I have like really good diet, and I have everybody supporting me and helping me. So actually on Thursday, I drink a little bit of water before I sleep. I eat a little bit, not much, but just enough to give me a good sleep. And I wake up ready to get those last pounds out, and no problem on weight.
And now let's talk about your last fight a little bit. You were, of course, supposed to fight Neil Magny. Found out the last minute he's going to pull out. What was your reaction when you found out you wouldn't be fighting Neil anymore?
I was worried, especially of not fighting.
Yeah.
I got ready so much for that fight. I did everything right. I was feeling good. Weight was going down. Training camp was perfect. So I wanted to fight Obviously, I didn't want to fight Neil Magny at top 15. Would be my first fight with a guy in the top 15. But, he couldn't. He had his problems. I understand. And I wanted to fight. That was my only concern. So the UFC managed to get somebody to step in there with me, and I was able to perform.
And you did, of course, fight Derek Krantz, which resulted in a knockout victory for yourself. What was your reaction when you were in that fight? Because I remember early on, he kind of came out swinging. He was trying to pressure you early on. What was your reaction when you saw that, especially from someone stepping up on short notice?
Yeah, I think he chose the right strategy. If you look on paper, I'm a guy that came. I have a lot of weapons, and I came on a full camp for that fight. He got the fight short notice, and he had to go in there and show that he's ready to come against anyone. He's gonna go and put the pressure. I think that's what the UFC likes. So on his part, I think he did the right choice, and I kind of was ready for that. I knew he was gonna come fast and try to pressure me, but I didn't know it was gonna be like 2 seconds into the fight. So he caught me a little bit off guard, but I was able to take the punches and try to get a guillotine. It didn't work out for me. He took my back, and that kind of like really impressed me. He had a good ground game, but I'm used to that. I train a lot of jiu-jitsu and lucha libre, so I wasn't in no worries there. I was able to got up and got the knockout once more. And he was a tough opponent, but at the same time, I went there and did what I have to do. Take care of him quickly and get one more win.
I know this fight with Mike Perry, obviously Mike Perry's got a big name, he's got a big following. What does a win here do for you? Let's say you get like a highlight reel knockout, or you dominate the entire fight. What does that do for you in your career? I mean, what's next for you should you get the victory in this one?
Yeah, I'm focused on this win, and definitely I think getting a win over Perry is going to set me up for the next level. I think after beating a guy like that, I'll be ready to face anybody in the top 10, and I think that everybody will think the same. The UFC will reward me with a top 10.
And what can the fans expect from this fight? I'm sure you've visualized it a little bit. Can we expect a brawl? Can we expect a barn burn like people have mentioned it? Is this going to be as exciting as people think it is? I mean, what are you expecting out of this one?
I have never seen any of my fights not be exciting, nor any of Perry's fights not be exciting. So I think it will definitely be a good one for all the fans, and I think it's going to be a striking match. Maybe me or him mixes up some wrestling, some ground game, but mostly I see a striking battle. And he's going to come on the brawler style. I'm going to come on the technician style, but you never know. If it gets dirty, I'm ready to go and make a dirty fight as well.
For sure, we're looking forward to that. What's the official result for this fight? How do you get the job done? How do you see this fight playing out?
I see it a knockout. I don't think it's going to be an early knockout, maybe second round, end of the second round. But I'm ready, to go 3 rounds if we need to.
All right, man. Well, I know everyone's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, it's going to be a great fight. Thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it.